topics, whether conscious or cosmic. It's never nonsense, mega levels are microscopic. It's a Killah Priest project, AD control the rocket. Before we land the plane, many things we engage and explain. The unexplained, without mask. Welcome to the Killah Priest podcast. Killah Priest podcast.
Oh, we are back. We are back in the building. Oh, yeah,
Happy Wednesday, everyone.
Hey, I call it Watermelon Wednesdays.
Okay. Oh, Watermelon Wednesday. Okay.
I was on my live today. I was eating some watermelon on my live.
Oh, okay. How was that?
It was real. I had the watermelons with the white crystals in them.
I never had that.
Yeah,
Is that organic?
It's regular. Yeah, it had little seeds in it. But it's like when you crunch them, it's just like it just give you that golden crisp like feeling. It was my eyes are closed, you can't see it. But when I say crisp, it's like
it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was great, man. Look, somebody said 5. Y'all was on there. Y'all saw that. No doubt. Oh man, somebody. All right, let's get it started before we get into it, because I already saw somebody say you so Crenshaw. Like, see that?
Thank you for the love. I love y'all. Thank you so much. Demetrius Barnes, thank you for the love. Shout out to Vortrich. Wait, I always mess up. Correct me, please.
No, it's not about correction.
It's my list, you guys. I do love my list, but when you know better, you do better. So I am gonna reach out to a speech therapist because I think it's time. It's always time to for growth.
Hey, listen.
And it's time to be put on a platform. And I don't want to always be talking with a list.
You sound good.
Yeah, listen, we don't judge.
But I want to be better, and there's nothing wrong with being better. I understand I have a list, so
Oh, you sound all right.
Yeah, don't be self-conscious. Yeah. Listen.
But I do love who I am. I love my list right now, you guys. But
Don't matter. But let's ask Mike Tyson how he feel. He's been living with it for a very long time.
Oh, here we go. Oh, Mike.
Hey,
Mike, I don't want no problems.
Now you've been doing this for a while. Mike Tyson is one of the greatest.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, Mike Tyson. Shout out to Mike, man. We're from the same.
Yeah, we might end up on. You might end up on his show one day.
I definitely want him on here, man.
I would love to have him on here.
He got hot boxing.
I want to ask a question.
When I first got on, it's something about. That's it. Something is the way you make me feel.
Jamie Foxx had his impersonation down pat.
Oh yeah. But he's going to do a movie on him and study him.
Oh wow.
And if I want to go into it, but that's like going into a whole spirit.
Absolutely.
Well, should we start the show?
Absolutely. You done.
Hey,
we way behind.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good.
But thank you for waiting for us. We appreciate it. Seriously.
And I don't want you to be self-conscious. I'll tell you something. We love your list. We love your list. But I stutter. I can't. You know what I mean? Certain things come out, but we are taught that at the house, and this is for the positive. But I love your energy behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you. I appreciate it. You gotta love who you are. But
exactly.
When you know better, you do better. Eventually, I do want to be on a big platform. USC, UCLA. And I don't want to be with a list. So it's nothing wrong with it. I love it for right now, but I do understand eventually.
Now let me hear you say Sphinx.
Don't start. See, he's ruffling that lion up. You already know. Touch that fire, you get burnt. Not just kidding.
It's joking. Leos could be so fiery sometimes.
Very fiery.
Especially Leo women. Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, Leos will always reinvent themselves.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? They'll come out in one style. Next thing you know, a whole new style comes upon.
I want to do a lecture on Leos.
Or they might switch up according to season.
I feel like that. I feel like this Mercury retrograde, and I just asked you that earlier, I feel like this Mercury retrograde is like a slingshot for me. I feel like I'm getting pulled back, like a movie. Like I'm going through this tunnel, and I'm seeing all these different visions and whatever. And then when it's over, I'm just going to, just force. It's crazy because I was chilling, and I was chilling at a park yesterday. And
great. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, Mercury, see, you over here spilling stuff. Yeah, nerves is bad. But anyway, I was at the park, and I heard children playing hide and go seek.
Right.
And I was just sitting there like, wow, hide and go seek. And then I was like, I'm thinking to myself of how, the games I used to play as a child. And I was just thinking like, wow. And it started to register to me like, what does hide and seek means as an adult? like literally. And I started getting this download, like really, like as a human, as when you're trying to find the truth, eventually you have to go hide and seek within in the dark, and you're seeking love, you're seeking light, you're seeking peace, you're seeking healing, you're seeking comfort, whatever you need to ready or not, here I come, and come out to the world and be a force to reckon with. So that's how I hide and seek for me. You may be in your hide and seek season. You may be needing to hide to, seek light, seek truth, seek love, seek happiness. And some of y'all are ready to come out. Some of y'all are ready or not, here I come, and is a force to be reckoned with. So, and some of y'all are scared to come out and to be a force to be reckoned with. And I encourage everyone you've been seeking too long, and now you're over full, and it's time to come out and pour out to the world. And some of y'all need to go into hiding and start seeking self seriously. But that's what came to me when I was at that park. I was like, wow, damn, that's deep. Hide and go seek.
There were so many things I had kept going on. I had so many things to say about that right there. But I'm not going to elaborate on that because you said the hiding part. And you are right, because I was thinking, why we got to hide and stuff like that. But you came up because a lot of people do put their talent and their ambition under a bush. How it says you don't hide it under a rock or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that works.
You was on that ready or not.
Yeah, ready or not, here I come. I mean, and that's to be a force to be reckoned with. You go hide and you seek whatever you need to seek so you can become a better you. So when it's time to come out and play, game time, God anoint you, God anoint me every day, you'll be ready for this war. You'll be equipped, you'll be in tune, you'll have everything you need within your hands to go out here and fight this battle. So I encourage everyone to, if you need to hide and go seek, please do that in that season. If you need to come out and come play and really be a force to reckon with, I encourage you, please, we need it.
Yeah, that was good.
Ready or not.
Right.
Here she come. Y'all better come.
Yeah, what you been on?
Literally something's coming over me. I just feel like it's just our time. Like, it's time for real people, real truth. I feel like kingdoms are falling. As you can see, the queen, she's going, and I feel like when kingdoms fall and people are passing transition, it's time for new leaders, new leadership, new activists, new everything to rise up. And I feel like some of you guys need to take your rightful places, even me, myself. So when I'm talking to you, I really be talking to myself, but here's some game for you.
Hey.
What are you over here doing, Priest? You just over here. You off.
The cat.
Oh, the cat.
Yeah, the cat.
Okay. Why must I chase the cat?
Why must I be like that?
Dog.
She got to change it, nothing but the God in me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Switch it around.
Okay. That's a good one. But yeah.
But I have to reverse those stigmas, like how they did, man. Oh, that was very inspirational. And that was good. I feel vibed. I vibed out. And remember that we are in retrograde. So up may be down and left may be right, but you can ride through this. I mean, sometimes when you're going through tribulations, it brings out the best in you. And what you experience, a lot of people, what we experience that's hard and different is just called change. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you don't feel yourself growing. You don't feel yourself growing, but you are growing. Yeah. And a lot of times we start to panic when we start to change. And those new feelings you get, just like when you work out at the gym, I always bring this up a lot, and you start to feel your biceps start to tear your muscles a little bit, but that's natural because you're starting to work muscles that you didn't work before. Mm-hmm. And so that'll be a little inspiration for you all. And I heard that. I'm not preaching right now. You know what I'm saying? Well, let's start the show now. Welcome, everybody. If y'all just coming in, welcome to the Killah Priest Podcraft. I am your host, Killah Priest. Running the rocket, let me introduce him. Is none other than A.D.A. Dizzle.
Yeah,
what up, AD?
What's good? Still setting up.
And everybody, y'all giving us so much props as we read. Is none other than the beautiful Myeoshe.
Yes,
and all blue.
And all blue, keeping it true.
Cool.
Nah.
Yeah.
But just sending love and light to everyone out there. I hope you guys had a beautiful day. Let's continue to, raise up our higher vibration,
Okay.
Let's have a good show.
Yes. All right. Well, we have shout out to the Oracle. I didn't see her yet, but the Oracle, Coach Kandaka. Also, our architects, and this is coming to start to roll off the tongue now, I like that. And our architects, which is Vinny Black Lodge and Voltage. Shout out to Voltage. I got the beat, man. Voltage. So crazy. She says, shout out to all the Virgos because it's y'all time. It's Nas' birthday.
Oh, I was just about to say it's your boy birthday, Nas.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Nas.
Yeah, shout out to Nas.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Uchi Wally.
Uchi Wally.
Yeah. We're gonna see him as soon as everybody come down this way with the whole show. We close to 60. Let's get it all up there.
Yeah.
And let me say this. Yeah, I got it, Voltage. I already started tapping into that vibe of that beat because that beat remind me of I don't know, it's just like raining tea. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just out there with your cup, and so everything is moving well with that. We just had a little retrograde. The album will be out as scheduled. Shout out to everybody who saw this part 2 of the trailer to Mother. Pardon me. And just like everything, we deal with the guts and the reality of things, but I just can't wait for y'all to hear this album and for it to be out. And shout out to everyone that's out there. Let me just start with Jason Mars. She says avatars. Yeah. The blue avatar. I guess they call you avatar.
What up, Vinny?
Vinny says almost there, September 22 portals. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, 22.
Exactly.
That's the perfect release date.
Shout out to Jody. We haven't seen her in a lot. She had some great ideas. And let me talk to the craft room as y'all coming in because we're going to go there today. Today we have beautiful guests that's going to go on. We're going to have a panel. And oh, man. Yeah, I was talking about sovereignty and shout out to my man Ben. What's that going on there? Somebody burn something up? Hold on. All right, so Vinny, we got Tazadaq here. He's going to come back on. He wants to... Oh, AD, you got that message? Okay, yes. Tazadaq is coming on. And Vinny, and we're going to talk about sovereign. And sometimes y'all get caught up in this law and understanding... the curriculums of things and how things work. And then you'll understand the whole system, how the whole system works, and it's geared against us, man, as minorities first and then as people in whole. Not just black, but the entire race. They want to captivate, and it's all type of tricky little things they have in there, man. You have to find these things out. And, opening up about it. Now we have a lot of brothers and sisters who did research on these things. I find it very interesting that, because you can get caught up in anything. It could be a traffic ticket. You go there to pay your traffic ticket. You got they charge you like you got bodies. I left New York like that. I'm gonna tell y'all a quick story, man. New York couldn't stand it because I had a traffic ticket one time. Oh, well, I ran the light. Can I say that? I ran the light. And I ran it in front of a cop. Right. So the cop, I was like, yo, man, my bag, you know what I'm saying? I was a little drunk. Now, let me stop. I ran it. It was in the broad daylight. I ran a light, and the cop was right there. So he said, yo, no problem. He said, yo, listen, man. I said I didn't see it because it was the way it was positioned. Funny. Coming off the Williamsburg Bridge. And so he was like, it's no problem, man. I'm going to give you this ticket, though. I'm going to give you this ticket. Don't worry about it. You show up to the courtroom, and they probably just throw it out because, and it's like a month away. And you just show up, you show your ticket, you explain to the judge what happened, and 1, 2, bam, you go on. Month pass. I go to court. Just like he said, I go through the court door. As soon as I go in there, he's there. Like, it's like I go to see the judge to tell him my part, and it was like he came as a defendant, like boom, 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 and he's like, yo, this guy did this, and he had all this, everything that I did, and I was like, oh shoot, this is the same cop that told me he was gonna let me off, and he was like, yeah, and he had photos and all that type of stuff. Yeah, exactly. He came there to get work. I said, this don't lie to me, man. And I got a ticket, and then, I got my license, was it suspended for like 30 days?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got my license suspended for 30 days. And I was like, I hate the system after that. And I thought I was going to get off, man. This guy was there, and he was like, he knew everything. And they laughed in the courtroom because I stood up, and I didn't have a good defense comeback.
Wow.
I was like, well, basically, because I didn't even know where I was standing at. He was talking about northwest. He was driving to northwest. He hit the angle on the south side. I was sitting on the east. You know what I mean? It's like he was gangbanging. It was like I was on from the south. He came from the east. Anyway, I was just like, yo, man, whatever he said was right.
Right.
Basically, that's it. I had to eat that one. And I looked at the system, and I was like, I hate this system.
Wow.
And they pulled me over many times because the system in New York, and it's here now, it's all over. But the traffic cops is off the hook. They be planting stuff. They be hiding, knowing you parked in the wrong spot, and they be coming from out the walls, writing tickets. As soon as you just went in the store to get something, and they writing you tickets. And I see, so that's a dangerous job. Next to towing, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, damn. Well,
towing is crazy.
Yeah.
I be watching those shows on these networks, and them people really be ready to take off their heads for towing their cars.
Yeah.
Towing ain't an easy job.
Yeah.
Man.
You get towed, man. It's
come out the house with nothing on, ready to save their car. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, towed. Oh, yeah. Do they see them yet? Oh, okay. I see you up in the building. I see you up on the Podcraft. Shout out to Vinny, man, and shout out to Tazadaq. Yo, this is gonna be incredible. I can't wait to get this started. I'm gonna do a little bit more shout outs before we bring them on. And I can't wait to get into this because there's a lot of information that I need, and I know that y'all need, and we need as a collective as well. And as we go into this, I mean, we are rising with new information every day, and sometimes we just need to know things, man. You can't be walking around here blind no more. Blind is the new whackness. If you're blind to the facts, you're whack. Try to wake up. Don't go back to eating that corn, or you know what I'm saying, eating the whack stuff. You know that's bad for you. Try to wake up and look at the signs, look at things that's happening. That's what's live. We're not dealing with the fake. I told you before, fake niggas gonna push them to the side. And let's have a nice conversation with real people that want to elevate in life. Stop hanging around people that's bringing you down. That's not here about to motivate you or push you into the right direction. Stop giving your energy to low vibrational people. Start elevating and changing the way that you do things. If you do things the same way, you can expect the same results. You think big, big things happen. We think small, then what you expect.
Right.
Shit with facts. And I got two
facts.
Brothers up here that's going to take us, and it's beautiful to talk about something that you don't have to be nervous about and scared, because they don't have these type of conversations on the regular. Conversations that we could talk about. Last time we brought up the Bible, I think somebody tried to run away. They didn't want to talk about that. There's just a couple of people, you know what I'm saying?
No.
We have conversations, and they be like, they get spooktified. Brothers being spooked out. Yeah, then you talk about ancient civilizations, they get scared. You talk about the law, they get scared. And that's the problem. We don't want to face things because we're particularly scared. Fear. They push fear in us.
Scared of the truth.
And the truth.
And the truth shall set you free. So can't run from the truth, because eventually the truth is going to catch up to you eventually. So might as well face it. You know, it's like karma. It really is. Like,
Boomerang.
we don't think so, but truth is really like karma because you don't face it now, eventually you're going to have to face it later. So might as well just take the ride, face it now because it's going to end up finding me and it's going to slap me in the face. Because then I might see, the truth may come and then it might be too late.
Right.
You know what I mean? So seek truth.
Take the good.
Yeah.
Take the bad. Take it all.
You know, don't run from it.
Yeah.
You know, run towards it.
Yeah. Yeah, you might run from it, run right into truth itself.
Yeah.
There's a song by Teddy Pendergrass. He says, "You can't run from yourself. Everywhere you go, there you are."
Right.
Doom, 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 doom. This is my joint. All right. So, as we get ready to start and get ready to get into this, I want to bring to the Podcraft 2 special guests, and I think there's a third. I don't know if it's a third, but they're all invited. I want to invite a regular who's been on here a lot, who's been bringing big names and, switching up things and having these controversial conversations, these damn Jesuits. We're going to get them one day. Shout out to my man, Vinny. I'm going to let Vinny in. Here's Vinny again. Peace, Vinny. Ladies and gentlemen, Vinny.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you, Myeoshe.
Hey, Vinny.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
First, let me say, because I only found out a couple hours ago, Killah actually love to my father because his mom just died. I just found out a couple hours ago, my grandmother, and some personal stuff. But since it's you, Killah Priest, and since Tazadaq, you know, I wasn't gonna come out of the show, but I'm a little off because of that tonight.
Oh, well, what happened? Somebody passed away?
Yeah.
Oh.
Somebody.
Yeah, my grandmother.
His grandmother passed.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, brother.
Yeah, sending love and light to you and our condolences to you.
No, it made me think of the show actually with Jesse Lee Peterson that you did, Killah, which was one of my favorite ones.
Mm-hmm.
And him with the whole forgiving the mother. And that was actually a conversation I had with my dad. I was like, I hope you forgave your mom and this and that. It made me think of you in that show. I was laughing so hard that show. You guys did a great show.
He was trying to walk. He's trying to walk my man AD down. Trying to walk AD
Yeah.
down that road. AD was like, "Yeah, man, it's cool. It's cool."
Yeah, it's all right. He thought chakras were stones, but that's all good.
Nope, wrong person.
Oh.
That was my man Dro. Shout out to Dro.
Oh, who you
We're
talking about?
Jesse Lee Peterson.
Oh yeah. No, he was cool. We ended up being on the same side and on all that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. He wanted to see like if what was the thing? It was like if I forgave my mother.
Yeah, he was walking you down a
I was
slow
like,
path. Yeah, he was.
Why wouldn't I? You know.
So I did that with my dad. I just did that with my dad a couple hours ago.
Wow.
So, but yeah, because Tazadaq and the show Killah, you know, I'm here. I wanted to say also, shout out to Mike Diggy. You told me about if anybody's like a fan and shows and stuff. I did. There's a rapper out in UK, big fan of you, Killah, and the show. That's how he actually found out about me.
Hey.
So I did an interview with him. So shout out to Mike Diggy and DNA Dan. Also, you remember Bart's the bro, Killah. He told me to say hi to you. And he said that, so anybody who's interested, Bart's the bro released a video yesterday, 24 hours ago. He wants it to be sent out. It's a video of one of the guys confessing right before he died about the fake moon landing. So it's a pretty powerful video that's just been released that he asked me to talk to you, Killah, and mention it. And if people could check that out and send that around.
Yeah,
you go onto YouTube, Bart's the bro. Check it out. It came out like 22 hours ago.
Okay.
And because the guy just died, Bart released the tape. Because they had to wait for this guy. Once he died, they were able to release the tape. So I just wanted to remember to add, that's what I wanted to remember before I got into now the show with Tazadaq. So thank you for giving me that chance. Killah, great job starting it off. Everything you were saying about law. I want to get into that real quick. You brought up the sovereign stuff. Tazadaq talks a lot about the Moors. And I remember when I was first starting out over 10 years ago, the Moors fighting in the courts was a big thing a lot of us were following. There was also the sovereign movement, like you were saying, Killah.
Yeah.
And besides you, like you guys were talking about like cars being towed and people getting mad. Well, there was a father and a son who were big sovereigns, and they got pulled over by a cop, and the cop's trying to talk to them like he would talk to anybody else. And these guys are going on about how they're sovereign, and they're arguing with the cop, trying to hand him paperwork. The cop never heard of the sovereign movement at this time, so this altercation happens, and these guys kill that cop. Then they get into they try to drive off, and then they end up getting into a shootout and get killed by cops. So actually, that's what got the whole sovereign movement mainstream. And then the cops were all being told about the sovereign movement. And then I knew personally some cops that were telling me, like, yeah, we're all being told. And I'm like, well, what are they telling you about the sovereigns? And he was like, we're being told like to kill them, beat them up, like they're crazy. And I'm like, oh man, So, I've been into over 10 years into the sovereign stuff at first and law. It first started with me in 2006 with the famous Aaron Russo, who made the famous movie with like Eddie Murphy, Trading Places and some other ones. He made a movie before he died called America Freedom to Fascism, to where he had some IRS agents and he got into how the income tax isn't even lawful. And so that was actually my first thing. And I went and I met Joe Bannister, did an interview with him. And that's how I first got started. So I've been in this for a long time. Then about 6 years ago, there was a guy named Carl Lentz, who was a common law expert. I literally went down there, was working with him and staying with him for like a couple months. And a lot of these guys, Killah, they've gone to jail. They don't win. Some have been killed. There was a guy, Dean Clifford. He went to jail up in Canada. But Tazadaq, he's been around, I know, for over 10 years. I've been listening to Tazadaq. And Tazadaq, he's still here. He ain't in jail. He's got tons of testimony. The last time you let him on the show, he had Jadir come on and share some testimony.
Right.
So if anybody doesn't believe Tazadaq, just go to his channel. I mean, I was even listening to more today of people giving testimonies. Tazadaq's the real deal. This guy knows more than all those other guys that I've met. And I've just been focusing with Tazadaq because he's the best. And we've talked about like health is the most important, obviously, because if you're not alive, then nothing really matters. But law is like really important. Just like you were saying, even things like getting pulled over, people get anxiety. Nobody wants to deal with cops, and then going to court, the anxiety people get, and nobody really wins, and everybody feels like they're getting beat in court. Everybody feels the system's corrupt. People have tried to fight, and it's usually always going to go really, really bad for you. So there's another way of going about it. Instead of fighting these people, is learning the system, learning how their game works. And that's what Tazadaq has done better than all the rest, I feel, in my opinion. And, I was excited last time to bring him on, but the show got so heated with Flat Earth debate, and we didn't get to really get into a lot of this. So, I appreciate you giving a full show to Tazadaq and I to come and get into this. And, we're willing to take any questions. Hopefully you get some good super chats and we get some questions.
Okay.
For the audience, I don't get to see the chat, so I just see Killah Priest and the set. So, super chat if you got questions. And I want to introduce Tazadaq because we call it Tazadaq Doctrine, Tazadoctrine. And
That's cool.
Killah, he's also great into male swag. Hopefully we can get into. I know a topic you love, like Kevin Samuel stuff.
Gotta add, there's Karen Samuels. Just joking.
So, is Tazadaq in yet? Did Tazadaq get in yet?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Tazadaq. Sorry to take up a little bit of time.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Let me just first say this to Tazadaq, man. I love your music, bro. I didn't put it together as you coming through. You always blessing us, and we love your music, man, because there's always a message behind it.
Yo, but you love the dude right there, Quadar, man, that be singing the hooks. That's my man right there that be singing the hooks.
Hey, yo.
Yeah.
This is so dope, man. We gotta put faces together with voices, man. We don't get to do that. We don't have no. And let me say this to the craft room: try to get some discernment. You sit up there, somebody right in front of you. You know when they say you entertain angels unaware. That you don't sit up there and entertain a band of angels who doesn't even know. That's dope. That's dope. Peace, brother. Tazadaq. Okay, it's all you. Shout out to Neptali. She says, Shalom, King. We are here. TDOC.
No, that's actually a guy. Nefertali. That's one of our brothers. But shout out to Vinny, man, for actually encouraging me to come on your show. And Quadar. Quadar is actually dealing with a foreclosure right now, and he had a little victory yesterday. Because we deal with that also. I've helped several people beat foreclosures, like hands down. So I try to get a guy come on here tonight, but he's at work. A young guy, like, how old is Jeremiah Quadar? 18, 19?
I think 19.
Yeah, he just had another victory in court. But, nevertheless, first of all, giving all praises to Yahuwah and, Supreme Allah, our forefathers. So, yeah, this time I would like to open it up for anyone that actually have any questions. But Vinny was speaking on a few things here. I want to clear a few things up. Like, I'm not affiliated with any kind of sovereign citizen movement, right? Okay. The sovereign citizen movement essentially is a violent movement. If you look at that 60 Minutes episode and the incident that Vinny was talking about, they had shootouts with cops. Being a creditor, it's nothing about violence. It's about creating a harmony and bringing a remedy to a situation. So that's the mindset of a debtor. When people go out and talking about, we're going to shoot you with guns, that there's no way you would actually be able to take on the government with guns. So this is an ideological war, right? It's a war on aphasia. And aphasia is the ignorance, the inability that people has actually developed to be able to properly use words. Most people don't have a clear comprehension of the proper usage of words. See, there's three forms of English that we learn, right? One is slang, like, yo, what up, my dude? That's a form of English. It's a slang. Some people call it Ebonics. Then there's a formal type of English when you may say, how's it going, Phil? Something of that nature, where you're using proper grammar. But there's a third type of English that we're not taught. And this third type of English is only taught to briefcases like lawyers and judges. And that language is legalese, where certain words appear to mean a certain thing, but they don't. So we could take, for instance, the word person. If you look up the word person in a Black Law's dictionary, Valentine's dictionary, any law dictionary, you'll see that one of the usage of the word person is a corporation. And if you pay particular attention to all governmental IDs, our name is always written in capital letters, always in capital letters. And if you know anything about the law of corporations, they're always written in capital letters. Capital letters always represents a corporation. So now you have what is known, government officials like attorneys, judges in the system, they have what is known as plausible deniability, right? That means if a particular situation exists, they could deny it exists. So they have this aphorism that ignorance of the law is no excuse. That means if we don't know it, they're not obliged to tell us and teach us. So they could deny that whatever we're alleging exists because they have plausible deniability. So what they realize is that a lot of people really don't study this. And I won't tell you that this is easy. The problem is people will go to YouTube, they'll watch a few videos, and they'll go in and they'll try this, and it doesn't work. You really have to learn the procedures of how you're supposed to properly conduct yourself in court. You have to follow their civil rules and procedures, criminal rules and procedures. You can't just go in and think you're gonna get some magical sheet of paper and make all of this stuff go away. So they're aware of this. They're aware that most people are not clear on what they're doing. They know when someone's going to YouTube and they're scripting something. So what happens when the judge or the lawyer asks them a certain question, they get crossed up. They run out of script. So when you can't have it script. You really got to know this, and you really have to learn it, right? So let me give you some history on this. So how did this thing all start? Essentially, and you could, I challenge anyone to go and research everything that I'm saying.
Right.
Because if you research it, you're going to become a believer, right? Go check it out for yourself. I'm not someone that's going to get angry if someone questions me. I want you to question me because that's going to enlighten you more. So it started back with World War I, right? So in World War I, the government actually needed weapons to go to war. So the banksters, we know who the banksters are. Many of you refer to them as the Illuminati and so on and so forth. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, you know who they are. Top 13 families, right? So the banksters had to fund the government to go to war. And so because the government did not have the revenue to go to war. But at the same time, the banksters also funded the people who they was going to war against. So they was funding both sides.
Wow.
And so essentially, all of the gold that was actually supposed to belong to the people was actually given to the banksters. Essentially, there used to be something known as greenbacks, which was actually backed by real money. Now, according to the Constitution, real money is only silver or gold coins. Congress was actually never given any kind of authority to print paper money. That's written in the Constitution. So the problem is most people don't read the Constitution. So nevertheless, when Abraham Lincoln was a president, most people think that Lincoln got assassinated because he tried to free the slaves. That's a misnomer. Lincoln wasn't trying to free the slaves, he was trying to save the Union. But there's something to think that Lincoln, because the slaves freed themselves. There's something known as the Gullah Wars, right? That's essentially what freed the slaves. It was the Gullah Wars. And they keep this history hidden. The warriors in South Carolina all the way down to Florida, they was known as Geechee people.
Yeah.
And these people was known as Gullah Warriors, right? So these people are the true indigenous people in America, right? The true indigenous people are not the people that they're called Indians, because those people, they migrated here, right? But when they got here, our people were already here. The true indigenous people of the land, right? And these Gullah people, they decided to fight back against the system. And so this is all swept under the war. So when you read any kind of history that's talking about the Indian Wars, the true name of that should be the Gullah Wars, because these are the people that ended slavery, right? Places like Fort Negro, right? They don't tell you about the victories that the Gullah Warriors had, right? And so essentially what happened, America got tired of going to war against the Gullah people, and the slaves were set free. Why is that important?
Fort Negro?
Right.
Yeah. You have to show me that. That's kind of dope. What's Fort Negro?
Fort Negro is a fort. Hey, are you familiar with Fort Negro, Vinny? Hey, can when you pull that up real quick? Fort Negro, when they was going to war. When you pull that up, Quadar? But nevertheless, right? But so I'm pretty sure someone in the chat could pull up Fort Negro.
Yeah. I know. but somebody shout out the Gullah Geechee. I've heard that. Yeah. I don't want to stop the bill, brother. You going? Go ahead, keep going. You said these questions. I got just a little bit of question. That was hard. I just want to see that. But just keep your build. You are cooking. Go ahead.
Right. So essentially, when the slaves got so-called set free, the government came up with, when I use words like de facto, I'm referring to government. I don't like to use like certain terms, right? So de facto, I'm referring to that as a government, because what we have right now is not the true government. A de facto means something that's existing in fact, but it has never been officially established, because the government that we have right now is not a de jure government. What we have is a system of democracy. And when you look at the history of the country, the system was actually built on a Republican form of government. It's in the Constitution. So we have what is known as a de facto, because these are the people that overthrew everything and changed the status of everyone. Initially, in this land, go ahead.
Would you say this is when they basically created Washington, D.C. to take over the states?
Right, somewhere around that time frame. So what happened, and a lot of this transpired in 1913, right? In 1913, a lot of this began to transpire, right? When the Federal Reserve Act was actually passed and the Federal Reserve Bank came into existence. So prior to that, the slaves were so-called free, 1800s. But when the so-called slaves was free, they had to come up with something that would actually put them back in slavery. Because when you read the 13th Amendment states that slavery is illegal except if you break the law. So they came up with a system, if they could get people to break the law, then they could be slaves again. This is what happens in people in prison. When you're in prison, you don't have any rights. You're a slave. You can read that in the 13th Amendment. You're literally a slave. Wow. So if you offend the law, slavery is still in effect because there's that except right there in the 13th Amendment. So, but they also came up with something else unique. They turned white, so-called white people into slaves as well with the invention of the 14th Amendment. Because this 14th Amendment, when you read the Constitution, it says anyone born and naturalized in the United States. Now, when you read the Constitution, you'll notice that there's always a distinction going on between the United States and the several states. It makes a clear distinction, right? Letting you know that the United States is not part of the so-called 50 states. So the United States is actually referred to in the Constitution because the Constitution that we read now is not the organic Constitution. The organic Constitution was referring to the 50 states united. But the truth of that matter is that your state was actually your country. When you ask someone in school now, they're taught in common parlance that your country is the United States, the 50 states. But again, that's a misnomer as well. Your country was really the state in which you was born. This is why every country, every state has its own constitution. And then you have what is known as a federal constitution, because initially the state in which you was born was your country. And the governor was in control of that particular state. And so when the federal government came in and they asked people to join this union, the states now became a franchisee of Washington, D.C. So when they became a franchisee of Washington, D.C., is because they took benefits from Washington, D.C., which is the federal government. So now they fall all under the umbrella of Washington, D.C. So now, even if you're saying you're a state citizen, you're still a franchisee of Washington, D.C., which is only a 10 square mile radius. So when the Constitution is referencing the United States, it's not talking about the United States that we've been taught in common parlance. See, the problem is everything that we learn in school, even in college, unless you're a high-end lawyer, you're taught in common parlance. But what they're saying is in legalese. So it's the entire different language. It's going back to the 3 languages that I spoke of. So in common parlance, a person is, hey, I'm talking to Vinny. He's another person. But in the language of legalese, a person is a corporation. It's in leges. They start using a lot of Latin words, right? Like in leges. When you look it up in a law dictionary, the word in leges means a creature of the law. It is a fictitious entity. This is why everything is written in all capital letters, right? So the birth certificate, right? That's the primary document that all forms of ID that you will ever own come from. It's from the birth certificate. And so from the birth certificate, they create a name that sounds like your name, but it's not you. Now, until so many people started coming forth with this, all birth certificates was actually written in all capital letters. Now, I've noticed that they've started to put it in upper and lowercase, but people can't get so caught up onto how it's written, right? Some people get deterred by that. the fact of the matter that they created on bond paper, right? It showed, and it's placed on the stock market. It shows that we volunteer to be commodities. So let's go back to World War I. So we're after World War I, United States created 14th Amendment citizens. And so with the 14th Amendment, so-called white people became slaves as well. Because in the preamble of the Constitution, it says anyone born and subject to, or naturalized is subject to the jurisdiction thereof, meaning they're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, which is Washington, D.C. Now, how do we know this is true? What can we use as an example?
Everything we sign, Tazadaq, everything we sign, whether you go to school, get a job, anything, are you a United States citizen? And we all we're taught, like you said, yes, because we all think we're United States citizens, meaning we're all employees for that corporation in the 10 square miles, like you're talking about, right?
Right. So that's whenever we state that we're a United States citizen, and this is kind of where the Moors come in at, right? And there's a distinction between the Moors. Shout out to Noble Jew Ali. All love the Noble Jew Ali, man. Circle 7. But these modern Moors, they're not following Noble Jew Ali. The modern Moors, essentially, most of them are nothing but sovereign citizens, and they don't know law. They don't know law. And so now the modern Moors, what they're trying to do, they're trying to indoctrinate the secure party creditor process into their teachings when that has absolutely nothing to do with the Moorish movement. Essentially, when you look at the birth of the Moorish movement and what Noble Jew Ali taught, he never taught this. So the Moors that you see that's trying to indoctrinate this, they're just learning it, and this is where they tap dance around it. A lot of Moors don't like me because I tell the truth. Mm-hmm. So the Moorish methods, it doesn't work. Well, they create a lot of contention, they argue, and I've had a few hundred Moors that come over to me for assistance and guidance, and I can show the paperwork to prove it. So their method doesn't work. And so what happens, they're taking a lot of dues, monthly dues from people, and they're not really giving them the necessities to be able to stand in court. Mm-hmm. So they go into court, they argue, and they lose. They lose because if you go into a court and you argue, you're going to lose because that's what attorneys do. That's an attorney's primary job, is to create an argument because he knows that you're not arguing in the language that he's stating. The attorneys, he's using specific words, and it sounds as though we know what it means, but we really don't unless you study legalese. So people get entrapped. Case in point, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. You look up the word suffer, right? Now, let's say Rodney King, the man he got the ass whipping of the century, right? Yeah. So if he goes into court and the judge will play semantics and say, did you suffer at the hands of these police? Wow. And he says, yeah. So, but when you look at the word suffer in legalese, it doesn't mean that someone done me some injury. When you look at the word suffer, it means that I allowed something that I could have actually otherwise avoided it. I permitted it. Mm-hmm. I wanted it to happen. You see, this is chicanery. And it's like not being able to comprehend words, it's really detrimental to anyone that goes in a court. And this is why so many people lose. Going back to what Vinny was saying about a United States citizen. So if I check off on a passport, a driver's license, a job application, right? Because everything essentially since the 1950s is governed by contracts. It's really no longer the Constitution. It's governed by contracts. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 says no state could pass any law impairing the obligation of contract. That means we all have a right to contract. And knowing thus, we could actually contract our rights away. That means I could go into a contract and I could contract my rights away. See, as a man, the maximum of the law states as a man, and as a woman, we're all equal under the law. So in their public servant capacity, we really would have authority over a lawyer and a judge. because these people was actually employed to ensure that we get our rights. But now, what has actually happened, the people has actually turned the government into a 3,000-pound gorilla that they fed when they get something from the government, when it's supposed to be the other way around. All you got to do is read the Declaration of Independence. Important parts of the Declaration of Independence, it says when the government infringe upon the rights of the people have a right to abolish that government. Look it up for yourself. I can't make this up.
Why we don't, yo, you making it such a deep part. Oh man. Why we don't do that though? Is it distraction? What's the reason?
Fear is the primary method of control, right? Fear is the primary what did Rockefeller say?
Right.
Give me a man's mind. I control him. When someone has your mind, see, without a proper head, right, you can't call a body into order. Without my brain, I can't call my arms and legs into order.
Right.
So if they control your head, you can't call anything else into order. So they use fear. Think about it. Let's look at the setting of a court. The traditional court, the judge is sitting up high. We're already psychologically taught that bad guys wear black. The judge comes out in a black priestly robe. He's sitting up higher than you as a form of intimidation in the traditional court, right? And so the moment that you go in and you've been taught all these horrible things that could actually happen to you. Most people that go to court are terrified. I have people tell me that all the time. I know people that have mantras and everything, but when they go into court, they lose it. Right. They totally forget it because of that fear. And the system knows that. They know that, so they use that fear against you. Yeah. And lots of times, go ahead.
I was gonna add on and say, from my personal experience for years, exactly what you're saying. The judges are gonna test. They're not gonna like there's no miracle paper, like he says. That's why it's so important that you can't just go to a Tazadaq or someone and think that you're gonna get a magic piece of paper, how much money, or this and that. You literally have to learn this. You have to spend time to do this. Tazadaq's done it. That's why he can answer every question and knows it like the back of his hand, but they're gonna test you. And yeah, you got the fear part, like you're saying, and then also like the trick words, like he said, they use it in legalese. Things like, do you understand? Every time you get pulled over by a cop, do you understand why I pulled you over? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, they do.
Everybody's heard that. The minute you say that, Tazadaq will tell you, everyone who's that means you stand under their jurisdiction.
Right.
Okay.
You have a right to
I want to add another word. Tazadaq, I'm sure you know this from Black laws. We all talk about, I'm a human being. That's why you'll never hear that word come out of my mouth. I'm a man. Okay. Human being. Tazadaq, you know what the definition was?
It tells you to see monster.
Yeah,
what?
Monster.
Oh, wow.
Let's slow that down. Let's bring that back with a rewind on the rewind tip. Let's bring that back.
If you look up if you define the word human being in a law dictionary, it tells you to see monster. And then when you go and define the word monster, it says an entity that cannot own property.
Wow.
So
this is why when you go to your job, they have something called the Human Resources Department. Because if you're a human, then you're not a man. A human is not a man, not in legalese. In common parlance, we've been taught that a human's a man, but it's not. It's a creature of the law. It's an allegiance.
That's funny because Lil Wayne has a track where he says, "I am not a human being." You heard that? And then
remember that.
He's got a track called "I Am Not a Human Being," and then he says he's a monster.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so some of these rappers, I could tell some of these rappers listen to some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've heard some of these rappers quote that the United States is a corporation. You know what they get that from? They got it from 28 USC 3002, subsection 15A. Hey. If you Google that, 28 USC 3002, subsection 15A, it's blatantly written right there. The United States is not a country, it's a corporation.
Could you repeat that again? So we want to get
28 USC 3002, subsection 15A. That's a U.S. code right there.
Can we Google that so the people can see?
Google it right now.
Yeah, can we Google that? AD, please Google that.
What am I typing? 28 what?
28 USC
Yeah.
3002, subsection 15A.
Wow.
Cornell Law probably will pop up and show it to you.
Tazadaq, was that I'm sure you remember the movie Wall Street.
Let's go.
Right?
Let's go.
Doesn't the guy in Wall Street sit there and say, like, the United States is a corporation, it's bankrupt, this and that? They've said it in movies.
Favorite movie. Yeah.
And I want to mention another artist, is Prince. Do you remember when Prince changed his name to formerly known as Prince and became a symbol?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was for legal purposes.
Yes.
Legal
Definitely right,
purposes.
because you signed the name.
They tried to make fun of him, but yep.
That's
Sorry.
correct. I agree with you on that. That's definitely 100% correct, because when you sign that contract, they own the name. They don't want the name that they sign. You know what I mean? So that's your corporation that you build.
Right.
It's up.
Right. So, I mean, if you're smart, right? So what people should do is they will create, you know what? People are so angry at Donald Trump because Donald Trump know his thing, right? A lot of people complain where Donald Trump don't really pay any taxes is because him, like the Rockefellers and the other people, they put everything in a private trust. So there's several different kind of trusts, but the kind of trust that we should actually be interested in is an irrevocable trust, a trust that you can't change, but you don't own anything. Let's say, for instance, if my name was, if I had a trade name, Killah Priest, I would name my trust Killah Priest, and then I would put all of the property in Killah Priest's trust. It no longer belongs to me. I'm no longer obliged to pay taxes on that. It belongs to the trust. The trust can write that off, and no one could come in and take it, right? Mm-hmm. So what people do, they wait until they get some sort of lawsuit, and then these lawyers come after them, and their property is just out there. And it belongs to them, the man, because everybody want to say, hey, they want bragging rights. Hey, look at me. Look what I own. But if you put it in a private, irrevocable trust, they can't touch it. The trustee's name's going to show on it, and everything's going to go to the beneficiaries. I don't own anything. And this is what Rockefeller meant. Control everything, but own nothing. And it works, and that's what Donald Trump does. That's what a man really doesn't pay taxes, and people don't get that when a guy doesn't pay tax. Well, he's not obliged to. He doesn't own any of that stuff. It belongs to his trust.
Killah, do you remember me telling you about that when we first met?
Yes.
I was trying to tell Killah about that. I was like, Killah, you got to get a trust. Put all your stuff. I'll help you with that.
Yeah.
On the private trust, what gives you a right, again, is Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, because it's a contract trust. You don't need any kind of governmental involvement because it's on the private side, and we have a right to contract. You just sit down, you come up with the meetings of your trust, you choose who's going to be a trustee, and you choose who's going to be the beneficiaries. Yeah. You no longer own it, the trust. Right. But guess what? Since you created the trust, you're the grantor, you get to do all the usage of it. Right. You get to use it. So you could have a AMG, you know what I mean, GS 6300 spaceship, but
it's Clark Kent getting paid off of Superman.
Right.
I have a question. Right. So is living trust still good to have or no?
So any kind of trust that's created by an attorney is not as good, right? But a private trust is a living trust, but you want the irrevocable trust on the private side. See, one thing that we got to learn to discern is the difference between public and private, right? Okay. And the public, things are done differently. That's how we get in trouble. But on the private side, when things are kept in the private, we stay out of their corporate involvement. So if I get an attorney to create a trust for me, let's say if I owed a debt, what the attorney is likely to do is come back and say, well, he put this in the trust because he knew that we was going to sue him. So they will come after you. But in the private trust, they can't do that if it already belongs to the trust.
Wow.
Can you tell them about the IRS? Because probably a lot of people are afraid of the IRS. They probably don't even realize that they're getting this from the IRS, right? Like the IRS has to give you a number for these trusts.
Well, I mean, for a private trust, not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. You really don't want to any kind of government involvement with that.
So,
You know,
so people in the community should know about an irrevocable trust better than a
They
living
should.
trust, so they can put their houses. Because I'm saying that because I know, you know, I have family members that always talk about living trust, putting their house in living trust, but it seemed like it's no good.
it's not. They can still go in that.
Wow, I
But
didn't
here's the
even know
thing.
that.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you. This is what I want to warn folks about trying to put a house in a trust, because the system knows, right?
Uh-huh.
The system knows if it's in a private trust, they can't take it anymore. So what's likely to happen if the house is not paid for?
Mhm.
If you're trying to put it in a trust, they're gonna demand all the money up front now for payment, because they know once that property's in the trust, they can't touch it. There's nothing anyone could do.
Wow, and they're not even telling our people that. They're just saying, get a living trust, get a living trust.
The system
like
is not
Tazadaq
designed to really help us.
But I'm saying we even have black people that are
But
in
they
the
don't
community.
know, you know?
Yeah, right. That's
They
even.
don't. They think they know, right? Like, hey, Qadar, give them a little brief synopsis about these people that try and take your house. These attorneys, and tell them what you submitted, and you shut the whole court down yesterday. Pretty much.
This is good.
It's pretty much it's some briefcases that opened up a debt collection firm.
And when he say briefcase, he means a lawyer, right? We call them briefcases.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's some lawyers that opened up a debt collection firm, and what they did was they a debt collector, and then they using some servicers who also as debt collectors to make the situation look like they're actually working for a bank, but they not. So all the documents in the case that they filed are fraudulent. Because as I sat down and started learning this stuff and paying attention and reading the books and stuff, I started literally being able to dissect the complaint. I was able to look at the documents, and I could see that everything that they submitted, they claiming, like, for example, they claim that they had the original note. But when I look at it, I really examined the note. The signature from my father was actually a copy.
Wow.
So, and as I examine the note even more, I can see the loopholes on the top of the thing. Like, you know how when you keep a document inside of a 2-ring binder, you can literally see that in the copies of the document. So now, as I started looking at all these different things, and I realized they don't even have the note. So okay, now if you don't have the note, it's a Florida statute where you can't close on a foreclosure. You can't do nothing. There's nothing you can do if you don't have the note. So I just started looking at all those different things and different avenues, and then I realized, like, they would claim that they're the holder of the note, and the holder, when you actually read the statutes, the holder can't take your property. They can only demand the money. So it's just so much stuff, like as far as us learning the laws of what they can and cannot do, and the thing of it is a lot of us be in fear. Once you overcome that fear, your mind will literally open up, and you will be able to fight against whatever coming after.
That's what it is.
Because that's the main thing, is the fear. You go in there, you from the moment you know you got to go to court, you get in front of the judge or whatever the case is, you get those bubble guts and all that. Once you overcome that, man, you ready for war. Because I know I'm ready for war. Ready for war. This Tazadaq, this stuff is serious. This ain't no joke. Ain't no playing. And you go look it up, and you go research what he's telling you, you literally gonna learn something. And you're gonna find it. Everything he teaches you, he shows you the source of information. Ain't nobody doing
That's
so I got a
right.
book right here called A Plug, right? This is a book I wrote, right? Pretty big book, right? Called The Plug, right? So the book, people say the book's very expensive. I charge like $400 for it, right? It's easy. Now, Crystal Meach, she got this book called A Plug. I have some debt validation letters that I put in here, right? Crystal, Qadar, you can confirm this because you was on the call when she came on. I couldn't get on the call tonight. She's probably working. She texted me a message like, "Oh, holy crap, this really works." It's a European sister from, where's Crystal from? Like Wisconsin, I believe. So she said, "Holy crap, this really worked." I said, "Why do you seem so startled? That means you didn't really have any faith." But she was like, "Yo," she was waving the title to her car. So what she did is she used the debt validation in my book right here, The Plug, and she sent it off. And when they couldn't validate the debt, she sent them a conditional acceptance to get the title to her car. There's a video on my channel with her flagging and coming on, giving a testimony. Like she literally got the title to a car now.
Wow.
And she's not making any more payments. She still owed $33,000 on the car, allegedly. But see, what it is, what I try and tell people, they're not loaning us anything. When I go and buy a house,
right?
When I go and buy a car, essentially, since there's no money, right? A little bit of history. 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt took real money out of circulation, gold and silver, right? So now there's no way to buy anything, right? Around that same time, they created something known as a birth certificate, right? Because they didn't have any way to pay the bankers back. I call them banksters.
Oh, man.
Because you got someone working in the bank that's a gangster. So that's like a bankster. You understand what I'm saying? That's the worst kind of person, right? They get you knocked off.
Right.
But, anyways, in 1933, they took all of the gold out of circulation. Now, when people say that's a fraud, everything's a fraud, that's a lie. It's not a fraud because they gave us a remedy. But although they gave us a remedy, they didn't tell us about the remedy. I want you guys to Google this also. There's something called House Joint Resolution 192. Now, there's a lot of haters that come on and say, well, the resolution could change. Well, it's solidified with Public Law 7310, 48 Statute 48. You can look those up also, right? Now, what that says, important parts, that every public debt, that doesn't mean a debt between you and I. It means the debt on the public side could be discharged dollar for dollar. Why? Because they took away our ability to be able to pay for anything. This is why when you pay your car off, allegedly, you still don't own it. If I own the car, why am I paying property taxes? Don't you know that that's something that's new? Property taxes? That's all new. If I own my home, why do I have to pay property taxes off when I think I own it? It's because we don't have the true title.
Wow.
They give us something known as a certificate of title. A certificate of title is not the allodial title that I'm supposed to have on my land and my home. If you look at your great-grandfathers, if the police or someone came on their land, they were going to get their shotgun and say, get off of my land.
Right.
Don't come on my land. Because they own the land. And if you came on the land, then you would be trespassing. But with 1933, Roosevelt changed everything. Then comes the birth certificate. Why was the birth certificate created? Because that was created to use the people as a collateral. Let's go back to the Woodrow Wilson and a man by the name of Edward Mandell House. Google Edward Mandell House. Edward Mandell House was Woodrow Wilson's handler. It was him that deemed the term for birth certificate. He said very soon, and I have some of this memorized. He said we will come out with a way of people registering their biological property through the ancient system of pledging. And he said, if we could pull this off, not one of these people will discover this. And if they do, we'll just deny it. Go and read Edward Mandell House's letter. So it was him that came up with the idea of the birth certificate and creating the people as a collateral to pay the national debt, because they gone in debt to, the banksters with World War I, and then again with World War II. So now the government's in debt. What do? They use the people as a collateral. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt came out with something known as the money order. The money order took place on March the 5th, 1933, which was an order for all people to turn in all of their gold. You had to surrender all of your gold. So now gold is not used as a method of purchasing things anymore. They use a medium of exchange known as a Federal Reserve note. And people kill each other over it, but it's really worthless paper. It's really only supposed to be good between you and I, because we're supposed to know how to discharge all public debts. Let me say this, because I haven't said it. I'm not giving anyone any kind of legal advice. No one on this channel is providing any sort of legal advice. If you need legal advice, seek yourself a competent counsel and please be advised. Everything that I'm articulating is strictly for educational and informational purposes only. If you try any of this, you do so at your own risk And if you fall flat on your face, it's your fault, because I always tell you, go and check it out for yourself. Check it out for yourself. So with the birth certificate, the people became a collateral for the national debt. And so what that means with the birth certificate, you guys ever wonder why when a baby's born in the hospital, even if the woman is born, they don't want her married name, they only want her maiden name? And if you look at the application, the live record of birth application, she's listed as an informant. She's listed as an informant on the live record of birth. And they only want her maiden name. Why? Because a baby that's born that doesn't have a father is a bastard. So when you sign the live record of birth, you're literally transferring ownership of your baby over to the state. And this is what gives CPS the authority to come in and be able to take your sons and daughters, because now you just transfer your son and daughter into a children, which is a fiction, a corporation. Go ahead, Vinny.
I was going to say that's where they get you as in the contract. Like you keep, what Tazadaq points out too is everything's contract law. And that's the contract that he's talking about. That's when we're creating the contract. So you can't go into court and say, you know, this is all crazy. This is how they're getting you and how they got the jurisdiction. You need to then be able to correct these things. See, I know what a lot of this too is probably a lot of people, you start getting mad because you start thinking about, man, it seems so corrupt. But with Tazadaq, you know, hopefully now we can maybe get into, instead of being upset or trying to get into a shootout, is Tazadaq has the methods and the knowledge of how it works and how you take advantage of that birth certificate. I wanted to add, Tazadaq, when I was with Carl Lentz, at that time, I was trying to get rid of my birth certificate, social security number, and everything, again, to be sovereign. And Carl was like, "You're crazy, Vinny. What are you doing? You know, that you need that piece of paper to operate with the system. You just need to know how to separate yourself from the straw man." And that's what Tazadaq, to me, is basically doing. He's showing you how to operate that straw man. Don't get rid of it. Don't curse the straw man. Don't be mad and stuck on this evil was done to you. Move past that and figure out, okay, well then, how do I work the system? And Tazadaq can teach you that with becoming a secured party creditor.
I can't teach, I just facilitate, right? Teachers like to control people's mind. I just facilitate information and the people be like, well, I accept this, but I don't accept that. I'm just a facilitator. Go ahead, brother.
But would you agree, Tazadaq? I mean, you know, you're crushing it and you're giving all the stuff, breaking it down. And like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I used to be where I don't want a social security number. I don't want any of this. But wouldn't you agree that you got to just learn how to use that?
Well, they created. I don't have a social security number, but Tazadaq has a social security number. I don't have a bank account, but Tazadaq has a bank account. You see what I'm saying? You see that distinction that he told you about?
Yeah, well put.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what we have to do, is be able to separate ourselves. When we want to use the benefits, you use the benefits, and you know. So that's why
we react on a lot of emotions. A lot of people. Let me just cut in. We react on a lot of emotions and take things, personalize it instead of really looking at the whole thing. And that's the whole thing. We were taught to react off of emotions and deal with it emotionally when we have to reset ourselves and start looking at things at a more spiritual sense and a more deeper level than just surface. It's easy to go, oh, no, we're scared of that. We're scared of that. It's easy to do that. Easy to turn the head. But going into something as a collective of people, it's like we've been falling right down that rabbit hole for a very long time.
Right. Yeah, with this, you got to be totally undaunted. You can't be daunted because they're going to pick up on the fair and they're going to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's a spiritual. It's a spiritual journey. And so this is why, essentially, when I go in, because they always, going back to the birth certificate, the birth certificate is the major contract that they try and link us to.
Right.
Because a birth certificate is typically written in all capital letters. What else is typically written in all capital letters? a tombstone, go to a cemetery, all of their names are written in all capital letters. Why? Because a birth certificate represents the decedent. Most people think the birth certificate represents birth, but it also represents death. The birth certificate represents death of the living man, right? Because now you're taught that you're this name. And so as long as we could get you to consent to be in this name, then they have you. This is why when a police pulls you over, right? The police is already running your information. They got scanners on their car. They already know who you are. But he'll come to the car and he'll say, let me see some driver's license, registration. Sometimes he'll say insurance. Why is he doing that? Because he don't know who you are? No, he knows who you are. His system is tapped into the DMV. Your picture came up, right? So why is he asking you that? To create joinder. Because he'll say, do you still live at this address? All you have to say is yes. You just consented to that fictitious entity being you now. So they create joinder with you and that fictitious entity on the driver's license, right? So anything that I hand to him, I always say out, well, I'm not entitled to that benefit. But if you need it, I'll give it to you under protest and duress. I don't argue. Never created an argument. I'm doing so under protest and duress. Essentially, that means I'm being coerced. The man's wearing a gun. I feel intimidated. I'm going to comply under protest and duress. So any contract, the law of contract states that for a contract to be valid, there has to be consent on both sides. If I'm doing so under protest and duress, I'm not consenting. I'm being coerced. And coercion has no standard in law. So now when I go in court, I deal with him right there. I deal with him right there. And now this is when we use the Constitution against him. Cop pulls me over for a traffic infraction, right? Traffic court's an illegal court. What do I mean by that? Constitution, this is something people need to get familiar with, right? It's the Constitution. Article 6 in the Bill of Rights states that if it's a criminal offense, I'm entitled to a trial by jury, right? If it's criminal. This is why old criminal trials, you see a jury there. It used to be 12, now they knocked it down. Sometimes it's 6. Nevertheless, there's a trial by jury. The 7th Amendment also says that if the incident is $20 or more, I'm still entitled to a trial by jury, right? So in a traffic court, where's the jury? Because if there's no jury now, you're infringing on my rights reserved by the Constitution, right? Yeah. But people don't know that. They don't think this. In a family court, where's the jury? There is none. So what we have here is a maritime admiralty court, which means they created their own court, and it's a colorable court. So it sounds like the law, sounds like they're reciting law, but it's colorable. If you look up the word colorable, it's something that's a resemblance of something that is not. Like a colorable law, right? Colorable statute or a colorable people. Like a colored people, it's not real people. So as long as you refer to yourself as Negro, Black, colored, you'll never get any kind of reparations because you're not even a people because you're colorable. This is where, because what flag represents colored people? What country represents colored people? Can't say you're an American, right? They don't even call you that. They call you an African American. So they're referring to you as a continent and a country. So you're not linked to any kind of flag because why? You're colorable. So this is why the Moors came forward and said, no, I'm a Moor, because you can link a Moor to something. Now you're not dealing with color. You understand? You're not dealing with color. So now this is why if you go to like Vinny's Italian, right? If right now, if I saw everyone on this call in their homes to stand up and sit down when I call your country and the flag that you represent and your nationality, all Black people will have to remain standing until the end of this show. You ask Vinny, he will sit down. He's Italian. I mean, that's from Italy, right? That's his nationality. So his nationality would be Italian. Chinese would be from China. That's his nationality, Chinese. But when you get to the so-called Black man and woman, they got to stand up because what would be their nationality? It's not Black. That's a branded name. Negro is a branded name. Color is a branded name. This is why the people have no respect because you're not recognized as a people because you're wearing branded names. In fact, we don't even wear our own names. We wear the name. If you saw something in a phone book, right, or anywhere, they don't really have a lot of phone books anymore. Just a listing somewhere, you saw Chin Lee, you will automatically, almost immediately think, well, this guy's Asian. If you saw someone like Zuckerberg, you would think that he's so-called Jewish. Emphasis added with so-called, right? If you saw someone with the name John Brown, you're not even gonna know the hell whether he's so-called black or so-called white, because we wear the names of our former captives. You understand? And so as long as you're wearing those titles, you will never be nationally recognized as a people. This is why they have a flag for everyone in the United Nations building, except for so-called black people. You're not recognized. You understand? So you don't have a nationality.
Can you just stand as a man, though? I mean, that's how called people.
But a black man is not a man. A man is the highest form of authority. What is that? Genesis, Bereshit 1:26. Man has dominion over everything. This, and keep in mind, this court system, their laws was based upon the ecclesiastical law. Roman canon law came from the ecclesiastical law, which came from the Torah. And so all of their laws, this is where their maxims of laws, they're not really citing nothing but really biblical verses, laws that they got from the Torah and the Tanakh. So all of their laws came from that, which is why the robe, the judge, when he goes in, he has on that black priestly robe, because they're practicing their religion, right? They're practicing their religion on the people. He comes out dressed like a priest. When you look at the word judge, I got something for you, AD. Go and look at the etymology of the word judge. You'll see that the word judge, essentially, when you look at the etymology of the word, was an Israelite priest. That's what the word judge come from. So that's why these men were black. They're really practicing our own culture against us because we don't know who we are, man. We're destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Hosea 4:6. Come on. But we out here arguing with Egyptologists and all of these people. Come on, man. You're in the same fight, man. Same fight. I think that's laughable. That's why I don't get involved in that. Same fight.
This is hard. Man, you going to wait?
I was going to say, Tazadaq, I remember I always wanted to keep it as simple as possible too. Carl always used to yell at me. He'd be like, you're one of those people, you think you're so smart, you want to talk a lot. He was like, you want to keep it as short as possible. And I brought it down to just things like I, man, and things like that. Is that how you would, and also I was taught we all put I with like a capital letter. But that was like, right, that's I decapitated, like a head decapitated. So I was taught to do lowercase I. Anything on that you know of, or?
Yeah. That's accurate. That's accurate in the English language. But keep in mind that English is not a pure language. English came from the Hebrew and the Greek and the Latin. This is why in English a word can mean so many different things. It's not really a language. So the Greek came from the Ibrit. All you got to do is look at, when you study linguistics, the or the aleph in the Ibrit, this is where they got that alpha. And so the bet or the ba in the Ibrit is where they got that beta and so on and so forth. All you got to do is look at the letters. It's the same letters. In the Greek, they turned them sideways. And then they brought that over into Latin, right? And so remember the I essentially, it literally had the Y pronunciation sound. And then around the 16th century, they created the letter J by putting the tail on the Y, just to confuse people more. So yeah, man. I like to say I'm an agreed man. An agreed man.
I always used to walk into every court and say, like, I would always be like, I'm here making a special appearance under threat, duress, and coercion. And right away they would get mad and they'd be like, no, you're not. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm only here because you got a gun and you'll hurt me. And I don't know what I've done wrong. Have I caused any harm to any man? and they would just get quiet, and I would just keep sticking to that. Like, I was good at stalling and pissing them off. Definitely not on your level, but that was basically where I was at. I was always just sticking it with, have I heard a man or woman? And no man or woman could come forward, like you said, right? Because this is all UCC contract. No man or woman is ever going to come forward, right? It's always going to be like someone representing a bank or representing something like that.
Right. So with the whole court procedure, you know, remember these people are watching things like this and they're monitoring it. So they always are trying to develop some sort of counter tactic, right? So now they're on to that, people going in saying, well, I'm the authorized representative and so on and so forth. So now one of the tricks that the role plays, the judge plays, is that, okay, well, if Vinny's not here today, I'm going to issue a warrant for his arrest. And so when you go in, they don't know how to handle that. They don't know how to handle that. You see what I'm saying? And so as soon as they walked out, the judge get them locked up because they didn't know how to handle it. So listen, the issues of law is threefold, right? First, you have status, right? You got to your status. What is your status? A judge's status is a judge. An attorney's status is an attorney. But what is your status? My status is simply an agreed man, right? Or I'm the paramount security interest holder, right? I hold all the interest and collateral to all the property registered and unregistered belonging to Tazadaq, the debtor. I'm not the debtor, right? The debtor in most court cases will always lose, right? So once you get past status, you're supposed to challenge the jurisdiction, because jurisdiction is another word for authority and another word for control. And I need everyone to reflect on this, right? If you go into a court and a court automatically has jurisdiction over you, that means that we're already slaves. Because if you already have control over me, I'm already a slave, right? Because look up the word jurisdiction. It's control. It's authority. So if he has authority over me, then I'm a slave, because he gets to tell me what to do. So we supposed to always go in for educational purposes and challenge the jurisdiction of the subject matter and the jurisdiction of the man, which would be the persona of jurisdiction. And what the law states, until jurisdiction is proven, then the case can't proceed. Right. Until jurisdiction has actually been established.
And I like, yeah, and I like how you tell us to go ahead and look it up. This is not your words. This is the information that's out there, and you're not held accountable of what we supposed to do as just people. So I like, because all the information is out there that we can just go on there and we can look it up ourselves. I challenge myself to go and look up this information that this brother is bringing out. Really good. And I know it's going to be there. I just know that you didn't do research in vain. Right. You know what I'm saying? Hours and hours of building on there. But I'm still going to go ahead and look, because we got to look. You know, we just have to see it. There we go.
Let them go back and watch this video. I want them to challenge everything that I'm saying here and watch them find it. Everything, they're going to find it. It's going to point right to the statutes. It's right there. But then again, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Now, let me say something about hiring an attorney. This is what a lot of people screw up. If you hire an attorney, you automatically fall under the jurisdiction of the court, and you can't do any of this stuff that we're speaking of. Where can we find that? The Law Book of Encyclopedia. I got some law encyclopedias behind me, man. I do this stuff for real. This is a different one, but there's a Law Book Encyclopedia called Corpus Juris Secundum. Corpus Juris Secundum, right? Volume 7, go and look this up for yourself. Section 4, it says an attorney's first duty is to the court, to the public, and not to the client. So that's a conflict of interest right there. And if an attorney's first duty is to the court, why would I employ an attorney? And most people, if they would be honest, that hire attorneys, you will pay him thousands of dollars, and only about 2% wins. if you're going in as the defendant. You know why? Because they got to keep that game going just like they do Vegas. If everyone went to Vegas lost, the game will be up. The jig will be up. So you got to let a small percentage win to keep hope. It's the same way in this game. So people go and pay these attorneys thousands of dollars and still lose, then they want guidance. Try it, go and improper your persona. If you go improper your persona, they're going to try and tell you you're going pro se. So it's like you're an attorney for the day. No, I'm going improper your persona. I'm just here as an agreed man to handle all charges outstanding. That's it. What else you got, Vinny? Quadar, you got anything you want to add, King?
You got
Why don't you tell people what bar means real quick? All
was that?
lawyers are part of the Bar Association, right? That's why that's their first allegiance, right? To the court, because they're part of like the Masons or something. And it's the bar stands for what? British Accredited Regency or something like that?
Registry, yeah. Out of England. And the Queen just died. And some of you Negroes was mourning over the Queen died. I would suggest that you go and do some research on Queen Elizabeth, especially at first. And this is what I want to say about you dirty Moors, man. Not the few good Moors that there is, you dirty, disgusting Moors. You sold our people into slavery, man. You slaughtered a lot of our people in West Africa under Queen Elizabeth. You dirty Moors did that. Go and do some research on that. They made a pact with Queen Elizabeth, and she funded the weapons for the Moors to go into West Africa and slaughter our people, murdered our people. And if you look at the history of the Moors, they have a lot of contracts and treaties of peace with these Euro Gentiles that had our people in captivity. They don't want to talk about that. This is why the Moors go so hard to deny that any kind of slavery ever took place. Because they was involved in that. Don't you know that Moors owned a lot of slaves?
Right.
They owned a lot of slaves.
Okay. Could you make the extension of what? I mean, what kind of Moors are you talking about?
I'm talking about these Moors that was actually here in the United States, and many of the ancient Moors. Many of the ancient Moors went into West Africa under Queen Elizabeth, and they enslaved Hebrew people and West African people. I've got a couple of videos on that, and the Moors came on. They can't really say nothing. They got shut down. They got shut down. Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That's a contract with the United States that the Moors has. The Moors used to own us as slaves. Same skin color, but not the same spirit, not the same people. Now understand this.
Oh, wow.
When I say Moors, there's different kind of Moors. I'm talking about these ones that follow Islam. Now keep in mind, we have Moors. See, what they done today, they made more of a religion. Then they say they don't follow religion, right? So essentially a Moor, when you look at the word, the etymology, it just simply meant someone that had the copper colored skin, right? That was a Moor. So you had Moors that was so-called Christians. You had Moors that was Jews. But then you have some that follow this religion of Islam. Those are the dirty Moors. And these are most of the people that's claiming to be Moors today, walking around talking about Islam. And they don't even speak Arabic. That's the crazy thing. They don't even speak Arabic, and they claim to be associated with Morocco. And their information is so off. They refer to themselves as the Moabites of the Bible, right? Let me show you how they really don't deal with antiquity and geography, right? When we read the book of Ruth, we see Ruth was a Moabite, and a lot of Israelites trying to twist that. The scripture said it plainly. She was a Moabite. When you read the book of Ruth, she came from the land of Moab. Ruth married into the nation of Israel, right? She married Boaz. So it turns out that, and when you look at that the antiquity and where the Moabites was located, it says they went as far. What was that precept, Quadar, that I gave you the other night? They went as far east as you could go.
Yeah, they were like east.
And as far
keep
east,
building. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm listening to you too.
All right,
we drinking a lot of tea up here, brother.
As you could go would be China and Japan. That's the Far East. So that means, and when you look at J.A. Rogers' book, right, Sex and Race, book I had, Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers, first edition. This book I had, good book, right? J.A. Rogers says in his book that the first Chinese were so-called black people. The first Japanese were so-called black people. So it makes sense when you deal with antiquity because the Moabites, Moab and Ammon came from Lot and his two daughters in the Bible, right? And so then they went east. So how are these modernized people that's calling themselves Moors saying that they're the Moabites? Then you will be a so-called Asian, man. And they mix it all up because they call themselves the Asiatic black man. But you're not, your eyes don't look slanted to me. Your eyes don't look slanted to me. They done stole a little bit of everything. I'm gonna show you something else the Moors stole. Where's the book, man? Let me touch on the Moors real quick. Where's my book, man? The Aquarian Gospel.
That was a great show you and you guys did about Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah. That was a great one.
Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ. The Circle 7 Quran that Noble Jew Ali wrote was stolen from this. If you read this book and Moors hate, well, he didn't say it was his, then why didn't he give this man some credit? There's a European that wrote this book called The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ.
I read that book.
And almost, have you ever read the Circle 7 Quran?
No, but I read that book when Jesus went to Buddha and all these different countries. I read that book. That's a good book.
If you read the Circle 7 Quran, you'll see that they stole the information right.
Wait, what's the name? What's the name of that book again?
Circle 7?
Circle 7 Quran?
That the Moors use. Yeah. This book right here. I'm not just talking it.
And this is what Madame Blavatsky and everyone was into, right?
What was that, brother?
And this was the one you were talking about with Madame Blavatsky and them too, right?
Right.
Yeah, and Aleister Crowley. This is what they were into.
This book right here, sis, is what the Moors use.
Oh.
Right? That's their primary book. You read this, you'll see that all of this literature is stolen out of the Aquarian Gospel.
Are you serious?
And they pretend that they know what happened to Christ when they when he he disappeared for 3.5 years, right? They got it from the Aquarian Gospel. And most of their I'm gonna call them witches because that's what they are. They're witches because, like the brother was saying, they follow Aleister Crowley.
Aleister Crowley, he is huge to the music industry too. Jay-Z wears Aleister Crowley shirts. The Beatles had his face on album covers. Ozzy Osbourne sings a song, Mr. Crowley. They're all into Aleister Crowley and Madame Blavatsky.
Yeah, that's it, Madame Blavatsky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so she went over there and she indoctrinated the East Indians. And so this is why the Moors, if you look at the East Indians head wrap, the people that's referring to themselves as Moors, they picked up that doctrine. They never imagined that the people on this side would pick up on that and where they got it from. So stolen doctrine.
I have a question. So you know how some of our religion folks that are not open and haven't read the Aquarian Gospel, some people don't believe Jesus sat with Buddha and went to all these different countries and actually got wisdom from them. So what do we do when we have these religious people that don't do that, that just believe it's strictly Bible based?
Yeah, well, I don't think those people are going to change. First of all, if they believe in Jesus, that should tell you something right there, like the whole letter J. When they start to read their ancient Bibles, right? Like I got a Sefer, I got a lot of Bibles behind me. When you read that, the letter J, I mean, just calling him that name is paying homage to Jesus, because the word Jesus comes from the Greek Jesus, right? A so-called Greek God. It has nothing to do with Yahusha that was walking the earth. So yeah, that's probably a lost cause. And people get really defensive when you trying to discuss their religion with them. Because there was a lady on my platform and we started talking about that. Tell them about that long email she sent.
She sent the email.
She sent this long toxic email, man. I don't even respond to that, man.
Because people think if they don't talk about Buddha and all these different religions as if it's devil worship, like not devil worship, but like we're not supposed to be interested in that. It's like, well, Jesus sat down with him, like he was interested in it too. So why can't other people just be interested in other religions or just basically practicing their principles?
Right. So primarily because the word religion, when you break it down, it comes from religa, which means to bind, to hold down, to restrain.
Wow.
To return to bondage. When you do the etymology of the word religion, essentially it means to return to bondage. That's why they don't want anyone. If you go against any kind of religious principle, they would tell you, no, you're going off and you're not going to be forgiven. You're not going to make it. Something like that. Most people that's in religion, they control them with that. They control. You're not thinking for yourself. You're not taught to think for yourself. And so you're stuck with their, I guess, so-called religious adept or leader teaches them to believe, nothing else. They're not open to like examine things. When someone is truly rooted in their belief system, because you got to remember belief. What is a belief? A belief is something that's not real, right? A belief is essentially something that's actually been indoctrinated into our minds from some other parties, right? It's a belief, right? It's kind of like when we think about something, like most of our thoughts came from something that's actually been indoctrinated. It's really not our own. There's very few people in the world that's thinking from their own accord. We're usually thinking something that someone else taught us, some third party. And then if it's good enough, then we develop a belief system, right? And so once we develop that belief, it becomes extremely difficult to get any new information in, and that's known as cognitive dissonance. I was talking about that the last time. Cognitive dissonance occurs when someone tries to introduce new information to us and it conflicts with the information that we already have. If that information makes us feel uncomfortable, we'll reject that information as a lie, even if that information is the truth, because of that cognitive dissonance.
Tazadaq, I think you should maybe, to people who don't know you, explain, being called true disciples of Christ. And now they're hearing you say that about Jesus. Can you explain to them, like? Well,
so Quadar, you want to explain that, man? You want to explain that? We just put the word Christ in there. Okay.
Christ is just, Christ is the anointed one, and it's a more familiar term as far as the English language goes. Being a true disciple of Christ, meaning that we really follow his laws, statutes, and commandments that's in the scriptures to a T.
Kahan. That's from Yakanan. I believe they call it John 8:31. If you keep my statutes, then you are my disciples indeed. So yeah, but we don't want to veer off into that. Anyone got any questions in the room? Because I could go on and on and on.
Nah, this is beautiful, brother. You cooking, you going in. We do have a bunch of super chats we want to go in. I mean, you cooking, and we don't want to break that cipher, but we do have some questions for you. Let's get this super chats before they go too far.
Good.
Let's see. Hold up. Here I go again. Hold up. All right, what we got here? Let's see. Myeoshe looking fresh. Shout out to Danny Salinas. Let's see. Joe Moore.
Shout out to Joe Moore, man, in Detroit. Shout out to Joe Moore. There's a lot of people that probably follow me over him, man. Shout out to Joe Moore, man.
We got one all about wisdom. 365 says continuous abundance, blessing, spirit, health. I say. Vinny Black Lodge, shout out, Ceaseless One. JD Aroha says, take heed to wise counsel. Will Sims says, shout out to Tazadaq and TDOC.
Shout out to Benaya, man. Come on.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. So they don't have no questions. No one in the room have any questions?
Hey, sometimes
hit the super chat.
Yeah. When you start coming out with that,
Yeah. I could probably offer you some things that'll probably help you in some of your positions, believe it or not.
Right.
At least turn some light on it.
Yeah. Don't back up now. Don't get scared when you have those questions.
If you call me personally, there's going to be a charge for my time, man. I charge for my time.
There you go.
If somebody goes off grid and starts with their own land and starts building, taking care of their own selves, aren't they headed towards sovereignty?
Good one.
Right? Shouldn't that be their next step, basically?
Okay.
Well, that's self-sufficient. That's being self-sufficient, I'd say. I wouldn't say sovereign, because they could still come and take your land if you don't pay taxes.
That's right.
So until you get the legal part down,
Yeah.
you're not sovereign.
And is being sovereign the goal? Because I'm sure there's some drawbacks to it.
No, not for me. Not for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to operate in commerce. See, and this is the thing. I always create a distinction between me and those sovereign citizens and the Moors. Now, let me say this. I've been through the Moors movement. I had the ID and all of that. So I'm not talking back out of the side of my neck.
Got you.
I tried that stuff and it didn't work. It just don't work. And so the Moors just need to come clean and be honest. And the sovereign people, I don't want to be attached to them whatsoever. I want to make this abundantly clear. I'm not a sovereign, man.
Yeah.
I'm not a sovereign, right? I'm just an agreed man. I'm just an agreed man. Now, for that man, hold on 1 second, Vinny. For that man that's going to get his own land, in order for him to actually even be in a sovereign capacity, he needs what is known as the allodial title on the land. If he don't have the allodial title, yes, he has to pay taxes. Why does he have to pay taxes? Because there's a trust. Because he doesn't have the allodial title or the land patent. Wow. Now, if he's able to get the land patent, then there's no more trust. The trust is dissolved, and there's no way that they could actually demand taxes from him.
Okay, I got another one.
Okay, sorry. I don't cut your wisdom.
No.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask them, if someone's going to buy a home, do you suggest, and they have the option to just keep renting? Because the last home I owned, I talked to the realtor. He said he was talking to a millionaire guy. The millionaire guy refused to own a home. He just kept renting and leasing. He said it was just better that way. Do you suggest people look into not owning homes based on the fact that the banks can take it?
Yes, it's better, right? Again, that goes back to Rockefeller. He didn't really own anything. But if you want to own it, it goes back to the trust. You don't want to own it. If you're going to own it, right?
Wow.
You're going to transfer it over to your trust, right? You just go down to the bank with the name of the trust and you transfer all of your car, everything over into the trust. Now you no longer own it, but it's secured. Because even if you're renting, they could kick you out, right?
True.
Yeah. The landlord can keep going up on the rent or what have you. But if it's in a trust, the trust now owns it once it's allegedly paid off. Once it's in a trust, they just can't touch it in a private irrevocable trust.
They do tell us to make a business. Yeah, me and my cousin, we did that in Brooklyn. We put it under the business Killah Priest. Yeah.
Yep.
We got a super chat right here from Eye to Eye. He says, how do we save these kids these days? Technology is moving so fast, we are not adjusting properly to the times.
Good question. That's what I'm talking about. Step up. Ask these questions.
Right. So, I mean, what is can he elaborate on that as far as, it's good that technology is increasing, right? They can track you all now. People love technology. So that gives them the ability to be able to track you all. This is why they want to go to a cashless society. With a digital currency, they could track everything. You swipe your card, oh, hey, he's in California right now. Oh, yeah, now he's in Florida. You're leaving digital footprints everywhere. So, yeah, this is why the technology is increasing. Now they're creating this, like, frantic panic about, hey, we need to create electric cars. We're out of gasoline. Why? Because they could shut down your electric cars. They
could program that car to take you right to the police station.
Right.
I find that very strange that all of a sudden they're trying to, have everyone geared towards electric, but everybody cannot work off of one generator. So a whole city was shut down if we're just working off of generators and no gasoline because of the electric cars.
Because the reality that a lot of people don't want to accept because of fear, that word fear again, is our country is shutting down on purpose. Just like the first show I did, I asked Killah, let me come on. I want to talk about COVID and these things coming on. I mean, I've been saying it this whole time. This is a thing called Atlas Shrugged. The elite in the 50s were talking about doing this. This is all staged, and they're breaking down the economies, the food, everything is going. And they're gonna, out of that, I don't know if we're gonna basically be like China,
right?
And like he said,
right, they're trying to make us a third world country, and on top of that, oppress people even more, because a lot of people in our community cannot afford electric cars. So it's like, what are they gonna do in the next 10 years?
We can't even afford the gas cars now. They keep jacking up the gas prices. They're gassing up, the rent is going up everywhere. Like in the past year or two, they're talking about, rent's gone up 2, 3 times its thing in some places, but nobody's pay's going up, right? So as everything just keeps going up, the food prices, the gas, the rent, but nobody's pay's going up. And and a lot of companies have gone out of business in the past 2 years because of all the regulations. So to me, this is all by design. I don't know why a lot of people don't see this, but, I don't believe in the coincidences. This is all happening by design. They're shutting down everything.
I want to say this. There's a way for people, but people won't believe in it because they think I'm some sort of actually nutcase, right? So there's something known as secure party creditor process, right? With the secure party creditor process, what happens is you're putting public officials on notice. You're not asking for any sort of approval on anything. You're doing a notice because essentially with the birth certificate, we was actually all transferred over to the state by our mothers, sometimes the fathers also. And so with that, the state got power of attorney over us. And so this is what gives the state the ability to send CPS into your home and do whatever they could do, because they have power of attorney over us, right? So we have to do something known as a revocation of power of attorney, which is actually taking power of attorney back from the state. And then, since everything belongs to the fiction that everyone's calling a straw man, right? The corporate construct, then we have to put a lien against all of that fiction's property, that straw man's property, and we do that by way of a UCC-1. So a UCC-1 is an acknowledgement of the lien, and the security agreement is the actual lien. So everything that the straw man owns, there's a lien against it. And so now the maximum law states first in line, first in time. That means whoever has the lien in place first, that's the superior lien. Because what a lot of these attorneys and banks do, when you don't pay, they will come and put a lien on your property. But if your lien is in place first, then your lien is paramount. And so their lien is not effective. Their lien could still be sitting there, but they can't collect until they first satisfy your lien. Wow. So there is things that, people could do. There's something known as accepting something for value. A lot of people tell you that, hey, well, it's a fraud. Well, it worked for me every time that I needed to use it, right? And so it goes back to Public Law 7310 and House Joint Resolution 9310. It says that we could discharge public debts dollar for dollar. That means if someone sends me a bill, can I not turn that bill into a remittance? But wait, what is a remittance? A remittance is money, either in bill of exchange, check, or otherwise. So no one really never sends you any kind of bill that says that you owe negative $100. It's always a positive number. So if we knew how to turn that into a remittance, could we not settle and close the debt? I contend that we could. I've done it plenty of times, and there's plenty of other people that I know that you could go to my channel and see that they literally discharge. I remember, what was that, 08? I discharged a car I discharged the car at Lexus. I discharged the debt, and I showed people the video of it, and I showed them a copy of the credit report, and they still didn't believe it.
Wow.
Because with a debtor, you're never going to convince a debtor. And so I learned, you got to just stop trying to convince these people. Just let them stay over there.
Right.
There's some people that's never going to get this, right? It's just not meant for everyone. It's just kind of like everyone's not meant to be a leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can't be a leader. Only 20% of the people in society could be an alpha male. The other ones are actually going to be followers. So it's kind of the same thing with this. But have a look at UCC 3-603B. This is what I always sent when I done an accepted for value, right? Someone sends me a bill. So a conditional acceptance is essentially known as, I'll conditionally accept your offer upon proof of claim that I owe that. But if you can't prove your claim that I owe this, then I'm going to accept this for value. And it's going to be for settlement and closure of that account. So they send a bill, I accept it for value, and I give them 10 days. If they don't respond in 10 days, the verbiage that I use in my conditional acceptance, if you do not respond in 10 days, then this matter is set off, settled, and closed. What do we have here? We have a contract. The contract is binding because I already had previous correspondence with them. So the debt is set off, settled, and closed. Now, what typically happens, I send all my correspondence into the chief financial officer, who's ever in charge of the finances of that particular organization. What would typically happen, you'll get a response for someone else in a different office saying, well, Mr. So-and-so, you didn't pay your bill. And so what they're doing is they're trying to get you to recontract with that particular organization. What I do, I send them a copy of the correspondence that I already sent to the chief financial officer. I know not to respond to this person because all my correspondence was with the chief financial officer. And I sent them a copy of UCC 3-603B. Someone Google UCC 3-603B. What is my tender? My tender is my ink pen. What is my form of payment? It's my signature. I sign my nature. This is where they get you to say, well, this is your signature because you're signing over your nature. Creditors use an autograph and an endorsement. What's the difference between a signature and an endorsement? A signature, you're just signing over your nature. It simply means to sign. An endorsement is a Latin word. It comes from Latin. It comes from the word endorsum, which means upon the rear. So an endorsement is always on the back, which takes us back to public and private. When someone is signing something on the front, that's always in the public. That's when people get in trouble. But on the back is always private. So when I'm looking at a social insurance number that they now call a social security number, the front is always public. That's not your number. It's the back that's your number that you use for set off, settlement, and closure, because the front is always public and the back is always private. And when we endorse checks, if we don't tell them what to do with that check, if we don't write instructions on that check, they reuse that check. Because the banker's law, right? There's something called the Chicago banking manuals, right? And in that, it states that a bank has to have its books balanced before the bank could close. So in other words, if I deposit $10,000 into the bank's books is not balanced, so the bank cannot close. So what the bank does, the bank has to withdraw somehow $10,000 to bring the bank to a zero balance. I could prove it. Let me ask you a question. Can you close a bank account if you have $10 in the bank account? Can you close it? Can you close a bank account if you have negative $10 in the bank account? No, they're going to tell you you have to bring that account to a zero balance, right?
Right.
That's the only way you could close it.
Right.
But if you look up, AD got a computer, right? Mm-hmm. If you look in Black Law's dictionary at a closed banking account, a banking account is never closed. It's never closed. So if I close a bank account, there's something known as an EFT that I know people and myself has actually used to set off debts. If you have old checks, I don't recommend anyone go and do this. I'm just telling you what I've done. Don't anyone go and do this because you really don't know enough. So the EFT,
that's true.
I can discharge debts based on a closed account. If you look up closed account in a law dictionary, it says an account that has been closed but remains open for discharge.
Wow.
So the truth is right there before us, but we don't read. So the account is never really closed. And if you go back to that bank and try to open a new account, they're gonna try to give you that same account number because the account is yours forever. Wow. So the only thing they did was balance the books. They brought the account to a zero balance. That's the only way they can tell you that it's closed. You can't use it anymore for deposits or withdrawals, but you can use it for setting off settles and closure debts.
Wow.
On the public side. And there's plenty of people that's done it. I'm trying to get Jeremiah to come over here, but he's working. He couldn't do it. But there's plenty of people that's actually utilized these things. It's not made up.
Now,
facts and testimonies.
Secure party creditor, this is something like you're doing like every week. You're doing webinars and you go all over. This is what you would say, like, this is what people, you want to go to Tazadaq and you want to get involved with this. The secure party
I get
creditor.
webinars, right? And sometimes I do in-person seminars, right? So it's essentially teaching people this stuff, right? Really to just go and check it out for themselves, right? And I encourage them, hey, get the books, read the books, because it's not an overnight process.
Right. Yeah, this looks like this takes time to really get into it, and we have to have some type of patience. You know what I'm saying? This takes time and patience to master it like you on that level. I'm going to ask you a question. You going back to law, right? For my brothers out there that's caught up with how does this apply with child support?
Yeah, we beat some of those also. So the problem with that though is that they signed a contract, right? Which is the birth certificate. The way that they listen, a man, and this could prove that, right? A man that has no birth certificate and hasn't taken any DNA tests, they can't force him to pay child support. So they need a contract. The birth certificate is a primary contract from which all other contracts come, and the one that they literally use to entrap us from the beginning. So let's say he does have a birth certificate. One of the things that he has to do is to show that he has the capacity of taking care of his son or his daughter. When we start to get into that child support game, then you got to be very careful the words that's used, right? So I've been through that, right? I have two sons. Their moms was from the Bronx, right? And so when she and I what was that?
Start talking about child support, screens go black.
Yeah, my camera, I think it started to overheat.
That's all good.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know.
So nevertheless, their moms is from the Bronx, and so she was in the Navy. So it got to a point that she and I just couldn't, make it anymore. So, I left. I'm still like seeing my sons and everything, picking them up like I should, but that wasn't enough for them. Now, we initially agreed that there won't be no third party intervening. You don't get the courts involved. So she decided she want to put them in a private Christian school, and she want to make me pay for it. So, well, I'm not paying for that. I'm not paying for these decisions that you're making. Then she started to get belligerent. So I'm traveling all the way from New York, and she was stationed in Virginia in this naval base to see my sons. And then there would be some times that she wouldn't show up. And so now, unbeknownst to me, she had, the way that I found out that she had done something dirty is her family's from Honduras, right? She had went there for one summer, and then when I try and take my sons to enroll them into school, the lady said, "Well, you can't do this." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? I'm their father." She's like, you can't do this. Go down to the court. So I guess she couldn't tell me, but she wanted me to go down. When I went down, they asked me, has anyone filed for custody? I'm like, no one's filed for custody. And so she went in the back. She came out. 5 minutes later, she said, no, yeah, it looks like someone named Rosemary's actually filed for custody. I'm like, huh? I was never noticed on this. So now I'm starting to think, and she knew that I studied this stuff, right? So I'm starting to think, then she's lying. So lying under oath is known as perjury, right? So, and you could be found in contempt of court for perjury and thrown in a box, thrown in the jail. So now I start building the case. Because now she got custody, and she had custody for 3 years. I don't know anything about it. This is why she's been talking so boldly. But she was continuously trying to get me served for child support, but wasn't able to do it. So now I go into the court and I submit a notice to show cause as to why my sons shouldn't be turned over to me, since she lied under oath and she created a fraud. And lo and behold, custody was actually reversed to me. And now I had the opportunity to put her on support, but I didn't do it. And so when the judge reversed it, he said, well, ma'am, do you understand what he submitted here? He submitted a show cause order. And he checked the box saying that you go to jail today if you can't show cause why you said that you had him served and you never had him served. So my argument was that I never had the opportunity to even come in and present my case because she lied. What she did is she sent the paperwork to an old address that she and I used to live together. And we hadn't lived together there for like 3 years. So that way she got a default judgment against me. So she went to court and all of this, and I had no knowledge on it. So
that's happened to me 2 times, Tazadaq. 2 times.
It's driving me out of my mind.
But for the child support for men that's under this, the only way that they're gonna really defeat that is they have to show that they're capable of taking care of their sons and their daughters. And here's the catch: you can't be getting any benefit from the state. You can't be getting any state benefit. And so what happens is the mom will go and get on some sort of public assistance, and so they automatically come after the father. And the system is definitely biased against men, right?
That's true.
Right? Let's just face it. But when you look at child support, 90% of all cases custody cases are won by women. 90%. Because they had some thing on the books that some states still have it. They said that a child 4 years and under automatically goes to the mother. That's an old statute that they had on the books. Now a lot of states are trying to say that it's supposed to be like, who's the best parent? What's best for the child, which is still a lie, because most men just get railroaded. So the only way, and here's where men mess up. Men don't go in and fight for their sons and daughters. They just go into the fort, and then they have to play from the other side where she already has custody, and it's much harder to get them back that way, if not impossible, right? So men should actually go in and fight for their sons and daughters, because what's on the books now is supposedly who's the best parent, what's best for the children. And another thing that men do that's a mistake is that they don't shoot for, like, because the court is not supposed to rule on who's going to pay what. The court only supposed to do that if you can't reach an agreement on the private side between each other. So what happens is that many men don't show up to court. They get a default judgment against them. Then they trying to go in later and battle it. And one judge rarely wants to turn over another judge's decision. They just don't like to do that because it doesn't look good on the judge's record when his decision gets overturned. So they stick with it. They stay with what's there already. But if the man went in initially and just not for joint custody, but for split custody, where the baby or the son or the daughter is with him half of the week and with her half of the week. But you can't do that if you're in a different state. So if he could show that that baby or his son or daughter is with him half of the time, that totally distinguishes it. dilapidates the whole child support thing, because now they can't argue that she's given more than the father's given. And the other thing where men make mistakes is they're the primary caregiver and they're the primary source of income. So when you go into court like that and your woman doesn't have a job or a just over broke, so the judge is going to say, well, she's been being a housewife, so now you're going to just keep paying her what you was paying her. These are the mistakes that a lot of guys make. They don't think about this while they're in the relationship and in the honeymoon stage. But when the relationship begins to break down, when he should tell her, hey, you need to go and get a job or something like that, he doesn't. So she could just go in and argue, I've been a housewife, and more than likely, the judge is going to rule in her favor because it's already biased against men. But there's other things that he could do if he has the sons and daughters in his possession, because possession is 9/10 of the law. That's what a lot of men don't get. In most states, whoever has the baby, that's who really has the authority, because possession is 9/10 of the law. This is why many women take the baby and just flee off. Now they have possession. Now it's hard to get it out of the possession.
Tazadaq, that's what happened to me. My ex took my daughter and disappeared for 10 months.
Damn.
And then I get served with papers from another state saying, why didn't you pay child support the last 10 months? I said, because my daughter was kidnapped and I've been trying to find her for 10 months. But that didn't matter because I didn't know how to fight and how to do paperwork and handle the courts. But you can't kidnap her own daughter. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She can't kidnap her own daughter.
Yeah.
So the way that the system looks at that, right, is that when she first left, right, what you should have enforced. What was that?
I was going to say, how would you word that? I mean,
well, no, she didn't kidnap. She just left. Like I just said, possession is 9/10 of the law, right? So you don't have a right to tell her where she could live. If you see, no, but there's something. Isn't
that my child? Shouldn't I have the right?
Hold on, let me finish. You asked me a question. Let me answer it, right? So you don't have a right to tell her where she could live, right? So if she took your daughter and you didn't demand, see what you should have done, and I helped somebody with this before, right? The father took the sons upstate New York to Rochester, and their residency was in the Bronx. So the mom came to me and said, yo, he got my children. So I told her to issue an order for him to return the children to their rightful place of residency. So she went down to the court and submitted that, and the judge made him return the children to their place of residency. That's what you should have done. But when you waited 10 months, what happened? She established residency in a different state, and there was nothing that they could do anymore because you acquiesce, right? Which means you agreed by your silence. So in many cases, acquiescence is agreement.
Yeah, but I literally didn't know where she was. I couldn't contact her. I mean,
why couldn't you contact her?
Because her phone was turned off, and that was it. Like, that was her, like you said, disappearing. She had possession, established herself in another state, and then
when was there any kind of order in place then?
I had joint custody.
So, okay,